Okay, psycho class, we're gonna break down alcoholism and drug addiction today. A lot of people are struggling with this all over the world, and we want to qualify somebody because I didn't understand that I was an alcohol addict. I just didn't get it. So someone took the time with me and explained to me that I have to have these two things going on. I have to have the choice situation that is in the mind. Do I have no choice? Is my mind just on this wavelength of having no choice? Am I that sick in my mind because of my choices and my outlook on life? Have I gone that far down the path where I don't have a choice to do what? And do I have this control thing going on in my body? Something that I've come to conclusion that I can't control. I cannot control alcohol and drugs, okay? So I'm aware of that. So being aware of that and being aware of all the truth and consequences that drinking and using causes in my life, can I then now stay away and not put that first drink and first drug back in my body? So these are the two things you got to qualify someone with to understand if you're a true alcoholic addict. Do you have the choice thing going on, and do you have the control thing going on? Because once you figure this out, if you have both of those going on, then you have no hope except for a spiritual path that we're going to lay out today. This is your only hope. You can just play with this and try and continue to do things on your own and think you're going to pull out of it on your own, and continue to what? Lie to yourself and lie to yourself. And what do we do after these truth and consequences in our lives from our drinking and our using? We emerge remorseful, right? And we make all these firm resolutions, which are what? Promise after promise after promise. Okay, so we've done on this cycle over and over and over again. And if we are a true alcoholic addict, why does the firm resolution always turn into a broken promise? Because we are beyond human aid to get out of this cycle. If you have this mind, the choice thing going on, if you have the body piece, the no control going on, you're going to have to accept spiritual help. So we got to qualify people, okay? If you are in this, if you realize that, man, my life, if I look at my history, I'm on this crazy cycle and it's causing truth and consequences, and I keep emerging remorseful, I keep making firm resolutions, but all those promises keep turning into broken promises. Why is that? You know, do I have these two things going on? Am I a real alcoholic addict that's going to have to accept spiritual help? Why can I not stick to my firm resolution? Well, I never knew this. We're going to read this in page 23, 24, and 25 out of the big book, but I'm going to give you a sneak peek and tell you why. It's because of this. The spiritual malady, the spiritual sickness, this big old void right in the middle of me that I was trying to fill with drugs and alcohol and a lot of other things. That spiritual condition can only be treated by God. Why I'm so sick and why I have to look for other things to fill this void is because I'm estranged from God. I don't have a relationship with God. Until I realize this, I'm always going to continue on this cycle. So we have to qualify people, put them in a crossroads to make a decision. Can you control your drinking and using? Most people, after time, no, I can't. I'm sitting and I lost everything. I have no good relationships, nothing good in my life. Dude, it's like the consequences are too heavy. Okay? So if you can't control it, the other thing I need to ask you is this. Can you choose then to stop putting something you can't control in your body? I just can't seem to do that. Wow. You are in a predicament. You are in a situation that's going to end in death. You have a death sentence. That's what you have. So if you come to this realization, you accept spiritual help, and you do these three simple things that treat the mind, body, and the spirit, you're going to recover from addiction. So turn with me, we'll be quick. Turn with me to page 23, at the top of page 23, out of the big book, there is a solution. It's all laid down right here. So, top of page 23, and see if you can relate to this. So it says, these observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Because we can get the alcohol out of our system, the heat could come on, the truth and consequence could come on, we could lose our family, we could lose our job, we could just try to stay clean for a couple of days and get it out of our system. Maybe we got arrested, maybe we lost our place to live, and for whatever reason, this thing we can't control that's ruining our life got out of our system, right? There's been times it's been out of our system. Well, then why would we ever go back to putting that poison and the thing that's just, we have nothing good in life, why would we ever go back and put it back in our system? This is not normal for people to do. You know, are we that true alcoholic addict? It says, this is academic. We wouldn't even be having this discussion if you could just stop putting the first drink of the first drug in your system, in your body. We wouldn't have this conversation. But for whatever reason, it seems as if we can't just do that simple thing, right? I know I couldn't. So it says, it centers in the mind rather than the body. Now the body has its own thing going on, this no control thing, and this thing called a phenomenon of craving that not everybody has, and which sends us on sprees. When it's in our body, maybe not every single time we put it in our body, but most times we put it in our body, we develop this thing that we alcoholic addicts have that normal people don't have. It's called a phenomenon of craving, where we want more and more and more. It's this allergic reaction that not everybody has, just like not everybody's allergic to peanuts, like my friend right here is, or shellfish. I'm not, he is. I'm allergic to alcohol and drugs. My brother isn't. My sister isn't. You have to know these things. Do you have the components of being a true alcoholic addict? Because if you do, you have a death sentence. But the good news is there's a way out. But you got to get on this spiritual path. So it would be academic. It's rooted in the mind. Here where we left off. If you ask him why he started on the last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility about them. You can ask, if it's out of your system, you can't control it, you're getting all these truth and consequences, you've emerged remorseful umpteenth times, you made firm resolution after firm resolution, you broke all those promises, and you're just on this cycle. Why then is this person, me or whoever, putting the alcohol and drugs back in their body? What is your reasoning behind it? What is your excuse? What are you going to tell people? That some of them sound kind of plausible, maybe, like something terrible happened to you, but does it even make sense? Say your wife cheated on you, some death in the family, whatever happened. But does it make sense then, because of that, to go and put this back in your body and face more truth and consequences? So we're trying to understand what's going on. Okay, it says, but none of these really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. You see that? It doesn't make sense. Any excuse you have to put it back in your body doesn't make sense because of the consequences that are coming. Right? It says, they sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the headache. Do you understand that? This is what it sounds like. Okay, this happened to me, this circumstance. You don't understand. All this happened to me. I run back to drugs and alcohol. And then you're going to add to all that havoc in your life because of what's created from you going and putting something back in your body? So you're just going to add on to the grief that was in your life as if that's a plausible excuse? Well, you don't understand. This and this happened, so of course I went back to drinking and using. And make your life even worse? This is how I lived my life. It's like grabbing a hammer. Well, I have a headache. Oh, I know what to do. Boom! I'm going to hit my head with the hammer. That's what it sounds like to everybody watching us in our lives. Okay? So let's go down a little bit and explain this malady that has a hold of us. Halfway down the page of 23, if you can see, it says, once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. Because of this spiritual malady, the spiritual condition, that we used to treat this with drugs and alcohol. Growing up, self-conscious, not really connected with my creator, living a self-centered life, going for the thrills of life. It's all about Matt. I'm the center of the universe. Matt. Well, it's fun and thrilling for years and years and years, but the problem is living that way gets you sick in your spirit. Okay? It's a double cross. God never intended us to live self-centered lives, but that's how the world is set up, and we know why, to people to fall for the trap over and over again. So I developed a spiritual sickness, this big old void without having a relationship with God that I used to feel with drugs and alcohol until they stopped working. Because they sure did work for a while, right? And then if I try to remove the drugs and alcohol, what am I left with? I'm left with this spiritual malady that I haven't been treating with God and the things of God. The RIDs, I am restless, irritable, and discontented. I am not a happy camper. I have feelings of uselessness. I'm plagued with depression and anxiety, feelings of boredom. This is the result of spiritual malady, disconnection from God. So I just know nothing but my alcohol or drug addict life, and I keep going back to putting this in my body, even when it's not working anymore. And I'm just stuck in this cycle of living. And there's a way out, okay? So that malady. Okay, down at the bottom of page 23, here's the tragic truth. It says, the last two lines, the tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic drug addict, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost his control. You see, we've lost our control. We have this body piece. When we put it in our body, we go on these sprees, and the only thing that stops us is the truth and consequences in our lives. So we've lost control. And then it goes on. The other piece we need to make clear to understand if you're qualified as a real alcoholic addict, meaning you have a choice to make. You're either going to continue on this cycle, never being able to get off, or you are going to surrender and accept spiritual help. And you'll get off and you'll stay off. If you follow through and do these three simple things that I'll mention here in a minute that treats the mind, body, and the spirit. Okay? So you got a choice to make. There's no way out of this if you are qualified. If you have this choice thing and this control thing going on in your life. So then it says, so it touched on the control, top of page 24. Then it says, at a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. So it don't matter how bad, after being on this cycle and getting beat down, all the truths and consequences, all the broken promises, losing everything good in your life, not being able to get off, no matter how much you desire now to finally change your life, you will not be able to do it. And on your own. You can't do it on your own. So it puts you in a situation. The next paragraph, the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. So we got that no control thing going on. And then, are you here? Have you lost the power of choice to drink or use? Even when you know you can't control it? If you have these two things going on, you're qualified as a true alcoholic addict, and your only hope is to accept spiritual help. If you can't control something that's ruining your life, and yet you seem to just choose to go back to that, you are insane. Absolutely insane. And that's why God wants to restore your sanity. Mm-hmm. But you gotta be able to see the truth. You know, not seeing the truth is how you can explain somebody who's insane. you're insane because you can't see the truth. What's your truth? Do you have no choice to keep going back to something you clearly can't control? It's something to look at. Okay. So, we're going to finish up here. We're almost done. The power of choice in drink. Okay, top of page 24. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. Okay? We are unable, at certain times at least, to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. What does it say? We are without defense against the first drink. We are insane and crazy around this. You don't even have a defense against putting that first drink back in your body. Why? Because the malady is not being addressed. You're not treating your spiritual condition that only God can treat. We've tried to stay away before. We took away the only thing we ever used to treat our spirit. I know it stopped working, but then you take away and you don't replace it with the one thing that's going to treat your spirit, your mind, and your body, God and the things of God. So removing the drugs and alcohol, you don't get better, you get worse. And you're just sitting there trying to get better, wanting to get better. Right? So, you are without defense against the first drink. Okay, bottom of page 24. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, drug addict tendencies, he has probably placed himself where? Beyond human aid. If you have the choice thing going on in the mind and the no control piece of the body going on, and you can't quite seem to stop from going back, putting stuff in your body, going back to the drugs and alcohol, even though your life is a wreck, you are beyond human aid. What does that mean? That means if you're in that situation, you are going to have God's help. There's no other way around it. And accepting God's help, I know I had to be in a position of having no other options because I'm very stubborn and hard-headed and selfish and prideful and full of fear. Okay? And I had to be left with no other option except to turn to God. And that has been the best thing I've ever done in my life. The biggest blessing. But I had to be out of all options because I'm that stubborn and ignorant and pitiful. But then when I turned to God and I started going on this spiritual path, my life has changed. It's never been the same. So I just have to spend my time expressing this information that God's the answer, and you have to do these certain things to walk out. The spiritual life is not a theory. The spiritual life has to be lived out. Faith without works is dead. There's things you're going to have to do and continue to do, and you will guarantee never to relapse and never to go back. Okay? So we're going to end right here. So you are beyond human aid, okay? This is the last little part we're going to go through. Now, at the bottom of that page, these are stark and ugly facts that have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics or drug addicts throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot. Okay? And look at this next line in the book. There is a solution. We're going to end on the solution. There is a solution to this. It says, almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process, what? Requires for its successful consummation. So this hard stuff that we're going to have to face, truths about ourselves and the leveling of our pride and looking at our shortcomings and letting people talk into our lives, this is, it requires, if you want to successfully get off this cycle and recover from alcohol and drugs, then you're going to have to go through this. It's working through all the steps and living out this spiritual path. And it's going to work 100% guaranteed, but sometimes people don't follow through with what it's going to take. So it's laying out everything it's going to take, okay? It says, but we saw that what? It really worked in others. That got my attention. These guys, I knew I could tell they were hardcore alcoholic drug addicts that could not stop just like me. And when they told me how they stopped, and it was 100% guaranteed that it would work for me, that got my attention. It really worked in others, and so I knew it could work within my life. Okay? The last little sentence right here. And we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When therefore we were approached by those whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. That's all you got to do now. Knowing it's been solved in people that God put in your life, the problem of addiction is solved. I don't struggle with addiction. It's 10.5 years. But there's things I have to continue to do. And this silver platter of spiritual tools that was laid at my feet, I now apply to my life. So since we're sick in the mind, in the body, in the spirit, I have to treat my mind, my body, and my spirit, and I've never been back on the cycle. So with my mind, I treat it by doing all the steps and living out all the steps. And one of those best ones for me is that morning time with God, the meditation and prayer, and asking God each and every day to guide my thinking and be with me through that day as I live out the rest of the steps in my life. That treats my mind, the renewing with it with God's word, right? With the Bible. The body piece, I take my physical body around like-minded people 4 or 5 times a week. I don't care about the relationship that's coming, the job that's there, the overtime that's being offered, because I'm going to lose all that if I don't keep this first and foremost. So I got to bring my physical body around like-minded people 4 or 5 times a week, whether it's AA meetings, church, Bible studies, okay? Then the third thing I have to do, the best way to treat my spirit, because these other things treat my spirit too, my connection with God, is take what I've learned and share that with somebody else. And I never stop taking other people through the steps, or discipling right out of the Bible, or getting involved in other things, Genesis projects and different things. As long as you're in these 3 parts, you can't relapse. Amen. So are you qualified as an alcoholic addict? Do you have the choice thing and the body thing going on? If you do, you're going to have spiritual help. You are beyond human aid. Okay? We're done.